Greetings, ladies and metallagents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called A Useless Bit of Flesh, written by Dark Prince 010.
My lord, this is the third rebel cell that we've lost contact with this cycle. Our spies are being discovered, somehow.
The Lord Vizier grimaced and took a sip of their refreshing drink, attempting to soothe their frustrations. What do you mean that we are getting discovered? We have quelled rebellions in worlds far more advanced than those through careful disruption of attempted uprisings. Have the spies reported back any indications on how they are being detected? The spy master looked over the data slate they held and said,
No, my lord. They only mentioned that they were put through a standard bioscanner, and after a moment, something on the bioscanner was flagged, alerting the cell to the spy's presence. That's the report that we got from the lone survivor. The others were presumably executed before they could make contact.
The Lord looked up at the spy master, waving an arm in frustration. But a bioscanner should show that they are identical to humans. Hull modifications and efficiencies shouldn't flag as something they can calibrate a bioscanner to pick up. We kept the stupid redundant organs of theirs, but the bioscanner would have no way of knowing that we simply optimized one and left the other as a vestigial decoy. So, what in the 8 nebulas of the demons are they detecting? What are they using as a marker? The spy master shrugged, and even the Lord Vizier could tell that this level of ignorance was not something the spy master was familiar with on any given subject.
I must admit to knowing little on their methods, but I will speak to the gene splicers before the cycle is complete to see if perhaps there is a flaw in their latest round of clone forms.
The Lord Vizier sighed, dismissing them with a wave. Their invasion of Earth had gone smoothly, but the resistance had cropped up almost immediately and was proving to be intractable. The humans would throw away their lives without thought, which was in line with what they had seen in the invasions and rebellions on other planets. But the humans here were tenacious, clever, and seemingly hell-bent on foiling every attempt of the fleet to secure their foothold on this planet. 8 cycles later, the spy master was again in the Lord Vizier's den.
My lord, we still haven't been able to figure out what biomarker they're using to identify our spies. Additionally, there have been some rumors of a weapons development, some sort of project that they are seeking to create and use against us. But we haven't been able to determine any of the details.
Is there any chance that this might just be a rumor? Something kicked up to scare us into showing our hand or making an unwise move?
I am unsure, my lord. It would not be impossible for the humans to make such a ploy, but the infiltrators have reported that the humans did seem very confident about this, even though it was clear that this was not information they intended to leak. Some slip of the tongue, one that apparently was quickly chastised.
There was an execution on the loose-tongued fool? Asked the Lord Vizier, curious if the humans were as strict with discipline as their own people.
No, my lord. Merely some angry words and a loss of social standing. But even still, the individual did not divulge any further information.
What about information extraction? Could we pull that human aside and seek to encourage them to be more forthcoming? The spy master smiled.
But of course, my lord. We've already done so.
The Lord was pleased that his needs had been anticipated. And the spy master's enthusiasm dropped a degree.
Unfortunately, the humans' interrogation resistance was still proven to be quite formidable. The only additional clue he could provide was saying that, like a bad toothbrush bristle, we would get our comeuppance.
The Lord Vizier sat back, confused. Isn't that a human hygiene tool?
Indeed, my lord. Something usually discarded after a few months as well. Not something that we would typically need to fear. There are records of fictional heroes in their canon, such as the human male named MacGyver, who could potentially use such an object as a weapon, but nothing that we've seen in actuality that would suggest that it was a true threat.
Very well, said the Lord Vizier. I wish for you to keep us updated on this. The last thing I want is for us to lose this ground that has been so aggravatingly difficult to gain. 6 cycles later. The Lord was not in his stand, but rather on the console of his personal flagship. "Get us up into the air, now!" he almost screamed at his pilot. The unfortunate pilot was frantically scrambling at the controls and reported, "I'm sorry, my lord, but the fusion engines are still igniting. It'll be some minutes before we can get airborne." The Lord snapped back at him. "What do you mean by that? Is there anything that we can do to cancel or jettison? Just get us airborne!" "The fusion cycle is a matter of physics, my lord, but I'll make sure that as soon as it is ignited, we're off the ground." The pilot's voice faltered and cut out as a shadow loomed over the viewport. The Lord Vizier looked up to see a shadow of an immense human craft that was hovering above their space's sole metropolis and primary base on this nebula forsaken world. It was an ugly craft, barely able to make it off the ground, cobbled together from various pieces and parts of old spacecraft, smelters, and petroleum distillers from the factories and refineries they permitted the humans to continue operating. Even as they watched, another section of the human ship ballooned ominously, and the Lord Vizier recalled the words of the Spy Master's last report. The Spy Master suspected they were being followed, the humans, for once, beginning to turn the espionage back on them. Apparently, the infiltrators had found a small piece of information that showed the threat of a human weapon was indeed substantiated. It had something to do with runaway fission reactions. It was ludicrous that any species would view fission reactions as anything other than unclean and inefficient waste of hard-to-produce fuel. But the Lord Vizier distinctly remembered some of the humans' historical records of when they had once used fission weapons and refined them into great and terrible bombs. The Spy Master had been kidnapped by a human resistance cell, but had managed a final transmission out before he was executed. He said that the humans were mocking him and named their superweapon after the biomarker that their species had overlooked. Illuminated now, the Lord Vizier could see the name of this ugly craft, its engines crackling to life as his sensors showed radiation spikes all across the mile-long ship. In red, splotchy paint, scrawled in skyscraper-height letters, was the Appendix. All too late, the Lord Vizier remembered that the appendix was a vestigial and useless part attached to the human gastronomical tract. Something even some humans routinely carved away to prevent infection. They had, of course, omitted it because it was small, and they had thought it would go unnoticed. But it seemed that the humans had realized this and used it as a mark of authenticity, the biomarker, to determine who was a true human and who was an infiltrator masquerading as such. The Lord Vizier stood slowly, taking a shuddering breath as his senses screamed about an exponential spike in radiation. To think that we would lay low because of a redundant and useless bit of flesh. Then the world around the alien headquarters went white as the appendix burst. End of story. Story number 2. Humans are not special. Written by Neil Lithi. Barrett was fidgeting.
You can't seriously think humans are safe.
Treg put his mug down, interrupting the smaller being. Oh, here we go. Humans are so weird. They drink ethanol. You're in a bar. We all drink ethanol. Oh, humans eat poisons like capsaicin. So what? Lots of beings spice their foods differently. Frel, the Gudian in the corner, would probably think the hottest human pepper was fruity, because his species is immune. Oh, wait. Are you going to go on about the caffeine or the chocolate? A human cup of coffee would wake a human a bit, make me need 3, and have that lurin behind you vibrating. Everyone has their own limits. Chocolate pulls out a small foil-wrapped item. This is what humans call a kiss. No, not a kiss of death, you brainless slug. Just a kiss. I melt this and put it in a mug of warm milk, and how does it make you feel? Like a kit in your mother's embrace. Works the same for most species. Just have to watch tolerances. The human world produces many such wonders. Taking a gulp from his mug, Treg slams it again to cut off the smaller being again. Do not start with the Deathworld thing. The place is fine for most species in certain areas. Some like it hot, some like it cold, some dry, some wet. Humans are considering having their cradle world be a vacation because they can accommodate so many different sophonts. And before you get to the high gravity, it isn't that much above average. They don't suddenly fly around because they go to an average world. None of that is what makes humans special, and no, it ain't how they do things different in war, like the warbots. Finishing off his drink, the soldier smoothed his ears. While me and my unit were watching Trixie dance with the crickets, the damn bugs decided to make things hurt. They got a small fleet past the lines and dropped seismic bombs on a dormant supervolcano on Tesla. Tapping a patch on his sleeve, "Yes, I'm from Tesla, third generation of 4, and all the hot ash and soot was blocking everything out. The world was dying. It did die. The damned microfleet of bugs was blocking rescue attempts till it would be too late. No one had the fleet to clear them. No one had the transports, not for so many. No military budgeted for that level of catastrophe." Wiping a tear from his eye. Then, human ships began arriving in system. First, just 20, swatted away. Then 80, blown to pieces. Then several thousand ships. All human registry, if not make. This was more ships than a council fleet, all in one spot. Most were pointing digits at the humans for hiding such a force. Then the battle reports came in. The human ships were underarmed and racing mostly for a planet. Badly damaged human ships were ramming the blockade to make openings. For each bug ship destroyed, 100 human ships went down with them, and 100 human ships got through. These were not soldiers, not navy, nor army, not dedicated rescuers. They were human spacers of every level, rich yachts to poor wrecks that probably shouldn't have been flying. But that day they were what the humans call angels, bringers of the divine wrath and divine hope. Because of them, my little mates, brothers and sisters, all their kits and our parents, our grandparents were all evacuated. Humans are not so special, but humanity, that's a different story. End of story. I'd quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and patrons: Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Bushmaster 177, Lord Azrakal, Ambrose Cattell, Quantum Wednesday, Dragzoon WRE, and Blueberry Cat. Thank you very much for the support. It is super appreciated.